Welcome to the Microsoft Tech Innovators Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Chad Merck, and each week we feature a different C-suite leader. Today, we have the privilege of being joined by the Chief AI Officer of Progress Software. But as you know, each week I have a different co-host who has knowledge of my customer. And today, Will Pollard. Will, thanks for joining me.
No worries, Chad. Great to be here, and thanks for having me, and great to be having this discussion with Ed as well. I'm the cloud and AI specialist working closely with Progress for Microsoft and have been doing for some time now. So really looking forward to having the discussion.
Awesome. Well, as you mentioned, our guest today is Ed Keisling, who's the Chief AI Officer at Progress Software, a global software company headquartered in Burlington, Mass, focusing on developing, deploying, managing AI-powered applications and digital experiences, all for businesses worldwide. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Chad.
All right, Ed, we really appreciate you making time on the road to join us today. And I wanted to start with this. I mean, Chief AI Officer, it's not a new title, but it's certainly an emerging role, more and more common. What does that mean to you to be a Chief AI Officer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think as we think about the Chief AI Officer role at Progress, we realized with AI just how much disruption and how much risk that could potentially bring to our business. But at the same side, I think we also saw how much opportunity that sort of AI could bring to sort of products that we offer and the types of solutions that we could provide for our customers. And so Progress has a portfolio of products within its sort of umbrella. And for us, the Chief AI Officer role allows us to sort of navigate sort of all of the innovation that is occurring within all of those different products and really look for different ways to sort of accelerate reuse. And also drive, obviously efficiencies and better coding practices within the organization as well.
Awesome. Well, Ed, I know Progress is a 40-year-old company, so this is not the first technology disruption that you've witnessed. But how has this AI wave been a little different?
Yeah, so it's funny. I was at Ignite a couple of weeks ago, I guess, at this point, and I went to a session that some of your coworkers hosted. I think it was called Connecting the Dots. And it was I think Scott Hanselman and Mark Rasitovich. And they sort of went through the journey of, Alter 8800, and they were talking about BASIC. But, I think for all of the listeners, this is the key session where you guys announced that Zork was going to be open source, right? And so, but one of the interesting things that they did is they went through sort of the journey of technology from 1974 when that first personal computer came out, to Zork, to sort of modernizing Zork and running it on the cloud, and then putting, sort of machine learning and AI to sort of play the game and sort of see who could play it the best. And it sort of caused me to sort of reflect on my sort of journey as well, too, in terms of like, I've been doing this over 30 years. I can remember sort of my first job where my biggest decision was, which VT220 was I going to choose, sort of the one with the orange display or the green display. I am team orange display in terms of how I think about that. But the point of, I think, sharing this is that, as an employee, as a technologist, you need to sort of keep reinventing yourself, over this period of time, and that there are a number of waves that come. And it's up to sort of you, the individual, to sort of lean into that and sort of learn how to learn and figure out what you need to do to sort of evolve with the technology. In sort of relating that to Progress, right, into Microsoft, right? Progress, like Microsoft, has been around for over 40 years. We have seen these technology waves come and go with client and server and cloud and SaaS and mobile. And all of these were disruptive. But going back to even the Chief AI Officer role, I think AI just feels materially different, right? That there is, I think, a really unique opportunity for us to sort of reimagine the type of company that we can be, the types of solutions that we can provide for our customers, and the type of partner that we can be.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity to reestablish and gain share, maintain share. So it's an exciting time. I know, Will, you were recently at their conference and made a really interesting statement about I think a study a lot of us have seen, but maybe not fully looked into. So I'll turn it over to you, Will.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Yeah, I was had the privilege of going to the Progress conference in Washington And at the time, I think it was not long after this report had been released by MIT, which was more so around the 95% of GenAI projects yielding little to no return. And I heard you discussing this, Ed, at the conference. It'd be great to kind of get a little bit more context around that, because I know that headline can be a bit of a stark one to just read without having any background. So it'd be great to understand your opinions on it and the context behind it.
Absolutely. And so I know a lot of us have heard about this 95% sort of failure rate with the MIT study. The way that I sort of framed it during this talk was through sort of a few dimensions. One, which is that I think, these are experiments. And if you think about the number of experiments that you run within IT, a good portion of those are going to be failing, by definition, right? You're sort of pushing the envelope in terms of what you're trying to do. And so I think failure is an option. But I think that the thing that I really was sort of trying to dial in on was that I think that a lot of organizations are not choosing the right problem to solve with AI, right? That AI really requires sort of a sharp problem to solve. And that many organizations, I think, as a result of all of the hype in terms of what they believe is possible, because I think if you're listening to the news and you're listening, watching YouTube videos or listening to some podcasts, I think the gap between what is being talked about and what can actually be done is pretty broad, I think, still. And I think that that's narrowing, and we can talk about that. But I think, particularly when the survey came out, I think people were being overambitious in terms of what they were trying to achieve with AI and not trying to sort of or not having a sharp problem to solve. And those two things were sort of compounding in terms of leading to not successful implementations.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I love that you looked into the study and what's the nuance of it, how many people are actually involved, and okay,
Yeah.
there's maybe like 50 people, and
Right,
so
50.
many of us, and I'm totally guilty of this. I looked at the headline, like, oh wow, there, and without being curious enough to actually research a little more. So and I think that's just the way it works. If it's very negative or if it's very hype and positive, overly positive, and I think to your point, the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I feel like you kind of take some time to look into even some of the claims people make, like we've deployed hundreds of agents or we've had this kind of success. And a lot of times there's a little bit of nuance in everything.
There's a lot of nuance, and I think a lot of work that needs to be done to sort of sift through all of this noise, filter through the noise, and actually find the signal in terms of what you should be doing at your organization, right? And so that's really sort of the challenge.
Well, I think that's a good transition. If let's use that like a starting point. If a customer comes to you and they want to get started on the AI journey, and I know you work with global customers, but also SMBs. So some of these customers may not be as into the AI world as some of us here on this podcast are, where we're thinking about it all the time, and they want to get started. How do you advise them? Like, what's your starting point?
Yeah, so I think when we think about SMBs, it's almost like they're being ignored in terms of the potential impact that they can have with AI for their customers, right? A lot of the news cycle is admittedly around sort of these fabulous seven stocks. I think for a lot of early adopters of AI, even going back just like a year ago, if you were doing anything beyond sort of ChatGPT or Copilot, you would probably still need specialized skills, hardware, data scientists to sort of do something moderately complex. And I think those were the types of skills that a lot of small to medium-sized businesses just simply didn't have on the bench in order to do some of those experiments. I think what I've seen over the last sort of year, and it was really exciting to see a lot of this at Ignite as well too, is that a lot of that plumbing that is needed in order to secure, deploy, manage, monitor agents, and to start really doing this at scale on real data is starting to come together. And it can be done in that low code sort of mode that I think has been sort of long the promise in terms of how AI can help transform some of these things. And so I think that is really sort of opening up an opportunity for small to medium-sized businesses. And the reason I think that there's sort of an opportunity for these small to medium-sized businesses is that they are really sort of that last mile in terms of connecting the technology with those end customers. in really trying to offer, I think, hyper localized and really personalized solutions with AI that will help those customers sort of really compete and hopefully thrive with their businesses. One of the things that I sort of think about in terms of small to medium sized businesses is uh, that they have a lot of sort of knowledge in terms of how their business runs, what their customers need, and one of the things that they can do is that they can translate that knowledge to sort of outcomes for their organizations, by differentiating how they leverage the models in terms of a day-to-day basis.
I love that, making AI real for every customer, not just those that have the luxury of data scientists on staff. So how do you? And I've heard you talk about this. Yeah, you talk a lot about with regards to AI. It's more around augmentation than replacement. Could you expand a little on what you mean there with that distinction?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was at, I think, Big Data France, and I attended this conference, and a lot of the conferences were in French, which is difficult because I do not speak a lot of French. But the one that I did manage to sort of go to was sort of talking about taking a process and sort of mapping it out and having every node in that process effectively be an AI agent in sort of reinventing the way that we sort of do processes within an organization in order to solve problems. I sort of have a lot of experience, and I started with organizations that really sort of thought very deeply about sort of business process management. And that process or that sort of approach to me just seems sort of fundamentally incorrect, right? And so maybe this is something that folks will want to comment or disagree on. But from my perspective, I think a lot of organizations already have really highly reliable, performant, scalable, secure systems that are very cost effective to run. And they have been honed over years, potentially decades, to sort of do a particular task really well. And it sort of pains me that I think a lot of what these startups are trying to do is to try to sort of take something that works and sort of replace it with something that has a lot of uncertainty. And I think for a lot of large organizations, that's just not a risk that they can take with their business. And so when we think about sort of AI, we are thinking about sort of augmenting those existing processes with capabilities that enable them to do things that they could never have done before. And the example that I would give with that is sort of, exception processing. So whenever any of us do anything, uh, you know, 95% of the time, 98% of the time, it is happy path, right? These are things that have happened before in the past. They will happen the same way in the future. And you can sort of build systems and design systems around that. When things tend to sort of fall outside the lines, that's when you need to have a team or an individual or some special processing to go in and figure out why did this go wrong. It could be a financial transaction that is out of range. It could be an alert that has never happened before in a system. And you tend to spend a lot of time trying to sort of triage and figure out what to do next. And I think AI is like a fantastic way to sort of add capabilities to accelerate time to remediation for those types of issues without breaking sort of that core system that you already have in place.
Awesome. Well, you clearly need an AI translator as well as an AI travel assistant. I feel like you've been all around. So that's a good. I love that you gave a few examples. What are some of the other examples of what you're seeing customers use AI to just solve problems today? And then we can kind of look a little bit about what's coming with agents. But like, what are you seeing today as far as you're going around to these conferences, you're having conversations with customers and even some small medium businesses who are just getting started. Like, where are you seeing the most impact today?
So I think the reality is that at this point, a lot of folks are still in the experimentation phase, and so I think this is very uneven, right? So it's very hard to sort of make generalizations here. But I was speaking with a consultant yesterday, and sort of asking them about sort of their client base. I think a lot of organizations, a lot of large organizations, still have a lot of compliance that they need to sort of think about, and may not have even things like Copilot enabled for their organization or transcription even enabled for their organization. And those are some of the low hanging fruit that I think really just starts to help people build trust in terms of the types of sort of value that AI can bring. But I think what are people doing today with systems like Progresses is we have solutions to help people with some of these things that you see in other applications in terms of data summarization. We are scanning for PHI. We are allowing people to sort of upload and sort and verify that documents have been sort of put in the right places with the right information and that they have been filled out completely. There's a lot of things I think around the edges that you can do in order to sort of build that trust with customers and help them sort of build data points in terms of seeing that this can be something that they can sort of build on moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. No, absolutely. And I know you partner a little bit with Microsoft, so I'll turn it over to Will, who works a little more closely with you for the next one.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. I know Progress has partnered with Microsoft for some time now, to the extent that we actually share the same office in Burlington. But can you offer any sort of highlights on using Microsoft technology, particularly AI developer tooling, to power those products, and where you see the Microsoft Progress partnership creating the most value for your customers?
Yeah, this is something that I talked about at the conference, right? Which I think is fantastic, and I think what I said at the conference is that I think that there's probably a day that does not go by that we do not talk to somebody at Microsoft in some format across the entire organization, and so I think that is fantastic in terms of really sort of. Um, I truly believe that you are vested in terms of trying to drive our success, and that this is a partnership and not sort of something that is transactional. I think Microsoft has helped us in a number of ways in terms of trying to accelerate some of the initiatives that we have internally. Probably the largest scale initiative that we did was, at the beginning of this year when we went all in and really tried to fully enable all of the engineers on GitHub Copilot. And so we partnered with you to have a series of enablement sessions. And one of the stories that I like to talk about with the enablement sessions is that we have roughly about 1,000 engineers in our organization, and we had well in excess of 1,000 people attend these enablement sessions, which meant that people were attending on their own time, right, and of their own will, more than one session because they were getting value out of it. And even now, when we offer some of these sort of build guilds, we are still seeing very, very high engagement and a real desire to learn. And so I think that that's probably the biggest opportunity that we have from sort of a coding perspective. And in coming out of GitHub Universe as well, too, I know that there's a lot of, Agent HQ and a lot of the ability to sort of start delegating meaningful work, whether security vulnerabilities or unit testing or accessibility type work to the agents on our behalf. That's something that we are actively running experiments with and are looking to partner with Microsoft and GitHub moving forward as well too.
That's great. It's great to hear. One, it sounds like Microsoft is being professionally persistent and annoying you every day, but hopefully it's helping you, uh, you know, working on the forefront of AI, and then you're taking that knowledge and you're making that accessible for your customers. So I love the workflow there, and like taking these partnerships and becoming frontier yourself, and then making AI real for your customers. It seems like and along those lines, I noticed you guys are also making some acquisitions in this space. Will, I think you were there when they announced one of the more recent ones.
Yeah, absolutely. It was another key nugget of information that came out of the conference was the acquisition of Nuclear and the investment going into the agentic RAG capability. How does Nuclear fit into Progress's long-term vision for AI and data platforms, Ed? It'd be great to kind of understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nuclear is an acquisition that we are exceptionally excited about. I think one of the reasons that I think Nuclear, as we call it now, agentic RAG or Progress agentic RAG, is so important is that I think after sort of chatbots, one of the very first use cases that I think a lot of organizations and even a lot of people do is that they take a bunch of files and they put them into a GPT and they try to sort of ask questions of it, right? They try to ground it in some sort of truth, or they build some sort of minimal RAG model where they are, trying to sort of ask questions around a particular domain. And I think people immediately see the incredible value that a RAG type solution can offer. But one of the challenges that those RAG solutions have is that they're very much, the Pareto principle there, which is that they get good pretty quickly, but it's pretty hard to get them dialed in and get them great and reliable and sort of at a place where you can trust it that it's not hallucinating, and you can actually leverage it within your business. And so what agentic RAG provides for our customers is sort of a turnkey SaaS-based ability for people to take document types of any format, whether it's audio, video, PowerPoints, PDFs. It could be in any language. They can ingest it into our agentic RAG solution. We'll figure out the best embeddings. We'll figure out the best chunking. We'll figure out the best indexing for them automatically. And then again, on the extraction portion, we will be able to sort of figure out what is the best context in terms of data that needs to be returned for that particular query that is being asked. And we can do all of this sort of automatically for that end user, right? So they don't have to worry about being an agentic RAG expert. They don't need to worry about knowing how to manage vector databases. We can just do this for them. And the great part about this is that it sort of solves two problems, right? We can use this sort of contextual this ability to sort of generate relevant context within each of our different products at Progress, but we can also offer it as a standalone solution for customers who just want to be able to get value from a RAG solution in basically hours and not worry about having weeks or months of sort of lead time in terms of implementing that.
It's interesting when we hear about the RAG pattern, retrieval augmented generation it was everywhere when the kind of this Gen AI wave first came out, and obviously a lot of value in grounding and a corpus of data and building chatbots, and it made capability, but everything moved to talking about agentic frameworks, in the last year. And I don't feel like I haven't necessarily heard the term RAG in the last year, even though there's still a lot of value in those solutions. It's pretty interesting.
It's interesting because I think it's interesting in a couple dimensions, right? I think you're absolutely right. Everybody sort of went immediately to sort of agentic solutions and even bypass sort of like enabling people in terms of how to be successful with things like Copilot, right? In better prompting techniques. We all sort of like ran to the finish line. But I think the interesting thing with RAG is that there is so much value that can be done in terms of just people. It's really not search, right? I think search is sort of the wrong term, but I think really getting the right context for the question that you were trying to answer. And of course, that context is not only relevant for a person, but also potentially for an agent that you might develop in the future as well, too, right? So it's really sort of a key building block, I think, for a lot of people need to do.
I know another piece of the announcement was around democratizing RAG for small to medium-sized businesses. And obviously, we've discussed that earlier. But what sort of specific challenges will SMBs be facing when adopting AI, and does Nuclear's approach of bringing sort of agentic RAG into this space, does that kind of remove those barriers? Or
yeah, I think that it brings it to one of the what agentic RAG deals with, right, is data, and I think the key thing that customers need after they sort of figure out the sharp problem to be solved is the data that is needed in order to help sort of solve that sharp problem. And so what I think any agentic RAG solution forces you to do is really sort of consider what are the data sources that I need in order to sort of feed into this system. Are they relevant? Are they appropriate for the particular regions that I may be deploying it to, right? How are people going to be consuming that data on the back end? And so what I really like about it is it sort of forces that conversation for people to sort of get their house in order in a small use case. And then they can sort of use that pattern to sort of expand to larger and larger use cases within the organization.
So along those lines, talking about building blocks, and there's been, we talked a little bit about the hype cycle, and this is the year of agents. And where do you think we're at in this whole process right now? Like, if you had to say, where we are in terms of value realization on that, and Are we there? Are we? Is it coming in the next 6 months? Are we? Is it already here? Like, love your take on that because I feel like you take a pretty nuanced approach to what's actually real in AI today.
Yeah, I was I think a skeptic. I think for the good portion of 2025, and it's hard to believe. I think some of the data that sort of comes out from some of the vendors themselves, right? So I was saying, when OpenAI is claiming that they have 800, active users. What are those 800 users doing, right? Like when I talk to my family and friends, they don't seem to be using it, right? And I think a lot of the use cases are not necessarily serious in terms of business, right? People are using it for image generation, video generation. You always see sort of those big spikes in sort of adoption when sort of these, uh, sort of fun use cases come out. And so I think that people have really barely scratched the surface in terms of how to actually use these tools. But that said, I think what I've seen over the last few months is, again, a lot of this infrastructure, a lot of this plumbing that simply did not exist, right? If I was trying to build some sort of agentic framework a year and a half ago, I would have had to have sort of built a lot of the underlying infrastructure on my own. It would not have been impossible, right? But if I wanted to sort of do orchestration or monitoring or sort of maybe figuring out how much a particular thing was going to cost, I would have to probably build a lot of those tools and sort of put that sort of stack together. What we're seeing now, right? Obviously, Microsoft announced a lot of these tools at Ignite. Is that foundation is there? And I can see a lot more of those early use cases or more of those happy paths being much more possible than they were even just a few months ago. And so I actually do think that 2026 could be the year where we start to see sort of really meaningful adoption in terms of agentic processing. I think it's definitely starting to emerge pretty quickly from a GitHub Copilot perspective in terms of the types of work and the complexity of work that agents can do for developers. But I think that's also going to be sort of the pattern and the building blocks that are going to be followed for sort of use cases outside of development in terms of operating things in different functional areas at an organization.
Absolutely. So we've talked a lot about small medium business. If you're an owner of one, like you're looking at the next 6 months and you're hearing all this, and obviously, there is some hype and there's some, uncertainty out there, but it is real. There's these frameworks are maturing and there's a lot of value being realized. So what would you advise folks to look at doing to get started in the next 6 months? If and I think anything beyond that's a little hard because this space changes so quickly. But like, let's just say the next 6 months, how would you
Exactly.
advise
You
someone?
almost need to timestamp these, right?
Yeah, let's
Uh,
timestamp this. We're talking at the end of the year. Yeah, so we get the first half of next year. Let's look at that. Yeah,
yeah. So I think small to medium sized businesses, I think, have a massive opportunity in terms of being much closer to their customers and being able to be much more nimble than I think some of these larger organizations out there. I've had the opportunity to work at a few small organizations that were maybe less than 100 people to start. And one of the things that you have at a small to medium sized business is that everybody is required to sort of wear multiple hats. You sort of just do whatever is necessary at the time in order to sort of make the customer successful. But people are very oriented on the customer. And I think one of the superpowers that small and medium sized businesses can have, particularly with AI, is that it allows them to sort of increase the surface area in terms of how they can impact and interact with their customers and offer them different types of capabilities. And so I think small to medium sized businesses have an incredible opportunity to sort of set a North Star in terms of AI and what it means for the organization, but also establish a mindset which is going to be needed in terms of, we are just at the beginning of this journey in terms of adoption and in terms of what AI is going to be capable of. It is very possible, I think, for small to medium sized businesses to get everybody aligned, enabled, continually learning how to learn with AI, learning how to reinvent how they do their job on a day to day basis. And that can become sort of a force multiplier for them in terms of being able to grow their business and serve their customers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tremendous opportunity. Well, we really appreciate you sharing your perspective with us, and just kind of a grounded view based on the conversations you're having with other leaders as well as customers that are getting started on this journey. And Will, thanks so much for making this connection and bringing some insights from the conference. We appreciate your time today, Ed. Anything else you want to leave us with that we didn't ask you about? Feel free to share it with us. Like I said, I know you, like I said, I feel like you're traveling around. You've hit all the AI conferences, so you got your finger on the pulse right now.
Well, yeah, I think that that's really sort of the key is, and this is one of the reasons that we've gone to many of these is that the best way to sort of figure out what is actually going on with AI is to actually talk to other people that are implementing solutions and to try to calibrate in terms of what they're being successful with, what they're struggling with. And I think that that just presents a much more realistic view in terms of the state of the industry, and relieves, I think, a little bit of the anxiety that like, oh, we're really far behind, or like, you know, we don't have all of these different types of capabilities. Well, you're probably where we need to be, right?
Yeah, it's like the early days of cloud. Everybody you talk to is like, we're so far behind. I'm like, well, I talk to your peers, they feel like they're behind too, and everyone feels like they're behind in AI, and it's just it's moving really fast, and we need companies like Progress that are taking all these changes and helping customers operationalize them and build them and augment their existing processes to solve the same problems they had yesterday, but just do it more effectively with AI. So we really appreciate you, Ed, for joining us and sharing these thoughts. Thank you so much for being part of the Microsoft Tech Innovators Spotlight podcast.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Will.
Thanks for listening to the Microsoft Tech Innovators Spotlight podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to stay connected for more episodes where we continue to uncover the stories that are shaping the future of AI and technology.